We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wake Up Aligned. So glad that you were able to join us today. My name is Dr. Shannon McMurtry, and I am your host. I'm here with my friend, Tom Owen. Tom, you look like you're in deep meditation over there across the table.
Yes, I'm trying to see what's going to come to the surface today and see if we have any expansive knowledge and divine wisdom to share with the folks today.
Nice.
But then I've realized you're going to be doing a lot of the talking, so that kind of went out the window.
See how that is?
Yeah.
You always bring the goods. I don't know what the thought process is over there, but has there ever been a time where Tom Owen didn't bring the goods when it was time to lay down some good information? Never.
Well, here's the thing. You never ever have a problem that Tom Owen has something to say. Whether or not it's got the goods, I'll leave that up to the listener to decide.
Yes, listeners, I'll let you inside the actor studio here just a little bit. Tom is very famous for, I need 2 minutes. And then 30 minutes later, he's still talking.
Or I have two things to cover.
Things, yes.
2 things to cover. It's always 2 things.
It's 2
never
things.
one thing,
it's
never 3.
That's right.
Always 2 things.
Yeah. Because if it was 3, I would say I don't have time. But 2, I feel like I would have time for that. I got a great topic for us to talk about today. You and I were speaking about this before the podcast began, and there's not a shortage of negativity in the world. Would you agree with that?
It's worse now than ever.
I agree 100%.
I think all the listeners would agree. But yeah, it's it overwhelms you.
I'll tell you how pervasive
it can.
I'll tell you how pervasive it is for me. I do not watch news. I don't listen to news on the radio. I don't read newspapers. I don't search news on the internet. I am a complete abstainer from news. Like if I'm listening to the radio driving down and there's a news break comes on, I reach for that little button on my steering wheel to change that station. I don't want to hear anything. But even
that's good.
Well, it is good, but this is how strong and pervasive negativity is. Even people like me, I get to hear the news of the events of the world and all that, sort of stuff, right? Because people have conversations and, they just drop it right in your lap. And I can't do anything about these things that they're worried about, concerned about. So how do we battle that, right? It's going to be all around us. Even people who are going to be guarded and trying to do their very best to keep that negativity at bay, it's going to find a way in. So we need to be prepared to fight against that. I know that this is a subject that you've taught on a lot. I actually learned that principle from you and your father, and you guys called it Accentuate the Positive. Now, there was a song that we used to play at our summit meetings. We don't play that anymore. I don't know where it went, but the title of the song was Accentuate the Positive. Now
that song comes back from the 30s and 40s.
Yep.
From the Depression. And that's when anyway, there's a lot of, if you go back and find that old recording, there's a lot of principles.
Yes, there is.
Inside a song that would be fluffed off as not, just fun and games, but there's a lot to that. You said people need to be prepared, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what's interesting, and I'm sure we'll dive a little further into it today. People don't even give it a second thought. So just think how riddled the average listener is. You said that you're protective, your walls are up and it still gets in.
Yes.
So if you don't even have the walls up, you don't have your defense mechanisms, or not even defense, you have to actually go on offense. And if you're not offensive against it, then you're riddled with it. And the concepts, because there's an old principle that says you can never, ever, this is a principle. This isn't Tom's opinion. This isn't Shannon's opinion. You cannot outgrow your concepts. Can't be done in life. If you don't understand it, or if that comprehension or that concept is tainted with negativity, limited beliefs, all the skewed values and the wrong identities and all those factors that we've talked about before. If those concepts are tainted or poisoned, and you're not even aware of it, you're not even defending yourself, much less taking offensive, you're subject, you're the servant to it.
Yep.
Right. And I don't want to get, you know me, I'm a man of faith. I take my faith it's very important to me.
You got your Bible on the table right in front of you.
That's right. It's from my morning devotion this morning. But you know what that Bible tells me? Bible tells me that the God of this world is full of lies, that he is the author of lies and author of confusion. Isn't that what the news is? Isn't it just there to spin it, to keep us in turmoil, to keep us divided? That's the thing that's in our world right now, right?
Amen.
A house divided against itself will not stand. Isn't that what it is? You can talk about the house divided, but the world is our house, our home, temporarily. And as long as the devil can keep it spinning and keep division in it and confusion in it, he wins. And it wins. It's a battle of your mind. Right. And I know that's where you're trying to head to. So.
Absolutely. Those are the old school pathways. Remember the newspaper, the news media, whatever. Now we have this device that we carry with us 24/7 called a phone, right? It's always on. And there are many people that have Facebook and Twitter, and they have all these, social media avenues on their phone. And I'm not saying that those are good or bad. My understanding is that you can filter your content. You can say, I want to look at certain things and not others, but you're really putting yourself at risk. I don't even have Facebook. I have no Facebook. I have no Twitter. I'm one of the happiest people I know, right? I don't get into a whole thing of, oh, look what the neighbors have. I need to have that. Look at that. Their life looks so great. Mine must suck by comparison, right? It's a very dangerous thing for us to not only actively or passively receive that negativity. It's another thing entirely to actively seek it out and turn these things negative as well. So I'll tell you a little story about how I see this playing out in my mentorship. I make, between 30, 35 phone calls every single week. Same people, right? Some every 2 weeks, whatever, but there's a regular schedule to that. The people that I'm working with know that I'm going to ask them to accentuate their positives. Tell me some good things that has happened to you. Tell me some wins, some victories. What are you proud about? What are you celebrating? What's some blessings that are happening in your life right now? Now, you'd be surprised. Well, you wouldn't be because you teach this subject. Ryan, you would be surprised to know that there are many people who I have coached for years that get that question at the beginning of the phone call and they go, I had something just the other day. And these are people in a profession of getting people back their health, getting them recovered. These are very devout Christian people, strong people that want to be an encourager and an uplift to other people. And yet they're not reflecting on their own blessings and their own positives every single day. And I encourage them along on that. Like, you give me something good and we're going to celebrate that. I want to do the positive reinforcement. But these are exercises we should be doing ourselves. You shouldn't be waiting for your mentor or your life coach to call you once a week, once every 2 weeks, just to give a report of the good news. You should be reminding yourself, right? You should be thinking about these things a lot. Count your blessings. That's what you should be doing. So I saw you take some notes over there. You want to add on to that? Take it a different direction?
Oh, I don't know if I want to take it necessarily a different direction. It was just as soon as I could tell the direction you were headed there. And I wrote down, as you said it, count your blessings. I was writing down the word thankfulness, because the way that you deter away from a negative concept, I can't find anything good to say. I can't celebrate anything. It's typically because you're looking inward.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, the only way that you accentuate the positive is you have to speak affirmations into you. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But you are a mirror, and you're only going to reflect what's going in. And if there's not a thankfulness, looking for things to be thankful for, look and finding the good in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not always easy. I'm not sitting here and telling you life is roses and lollipops. It's not. Life keeps coming,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I literally just had a conversation yesterday driving up here, and I was in my truck and talked to an old colleague of mine. And as I was describing, he said, well, how's everything going with the family? And I just went, man, I was like, man, I am clicking on all cylinders. I'm like, the businesses and new ventures, and I'm a creative person, so I've got some new creative projects I'm working on. And I'm like, recently inside the family, my own family, we've had some breakthroughs with the kids, and I'm like, I am just really clicking. And then there I was, and I said, I'm so thankful for it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but here's what I know. Another storm's coming.
Oh, sure.
Right? To think that I'm just going to live on these, with the roses and rainbows and lollipops, it just ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go through seasons. You're going to go through storms. But whether you're going into a storm, you're in a storm, or coming out of the storm, the key to overcoming the storm is always keeping your eyes on outward. In other words, how can I serve? You want to get your mind, or overcome your problems, get your mind focused on the needs of others. And how do I serve others? Helps you become more and more thankful. The more and more thankful you are, the less likely the world's going to overtake you with the negativity. And you said something a while ago, I think it's a good point. Here the host of the show, Dr. Shannon, sitting here telling you he absolutely will not listen to the news. He doesn't have a Facebook account. He's not on social media, yet you have the same battles.
I do.
Right?
For sure.
There's all you're doing is when you open those channels up, the floodgates are wide open, right?
That's right.
But even when you shut those off and you do a media fast that I talk about, guess what? The battle of the mind is still at stake. You are still nothing more, Dr. Shannon, you and every listener and myself included, we're nothing more than what we've been programmed over time. It's a computer, and what we've allowed to go into that computer over time creates our standards, creates our concepts, creates our values, creates our identities, and things of that nature. So until you get to a point where you start feeding and changing those outlooks, accentuating the positive, which is what the song's about.
Right.
Till you get to that point, the battle of the mind does not stop just because you think I've shut those vehicles off or those channels off. I know I talked about my Bible, and here it's sitting here. It says an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Right? Confusion can still get in there. Doubt, insecurity, all those factors. How are you going to overcome that? So listeners, this isn't doom and gloom. This is accentuate the positive, right? How do you look for the positive in every situation, even in the problem, even in the challenge? What can I be thankful for? And how can I look at it to overcome? How can I be on the offensive rather on the defensive? My dad used to talk about, he'd say, son, he goes, when dealing with life, he was trying to prep me for life, business, and things of that nature. He goes, son, always remember, he goes, every once in a while, you get a pick six on a football field. Every once in a while, you score a touchdown on defense. But most of the time, you do all your scoring on offense. And if you don't take an offensive position, an offensive strategy, you're going to be constantly deflecting. You're going to be using you're never, the Bible again talks about the sword of the Spirit. The sword of the Spirit's the word. And then everything else is a defensive mechanism, right? Your helmet, your shield, your buckle, right? All those are defense mechanisms, but the only offensive is the sword. Same kind of thing. What's the sword? The sword of the Spirit, by the way, is the Word of God. It's speaking the Bible, speaking the Word of God, the living Word of God. What is the key to that? It's speaking, right? It's a living word. It's speaking that word, using the tongue. Both power of life and death are both in the tongue. Just as much as you have to speak the word, what are you speaking? The power is in what you're saying. And when we talk about thankfulness and accentuate the positive, what are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to the storm? What is coming out of your mouth? Not so much what's coming out of other people's mouths.
Right.
You can deflect that. That's a defense mechanism. You can deflect. But your only offensive is, what are you saying to it? What are you saying to it? And like you said, I'm going to throw it back to you, Dr. Shannon, on your 30-something calls a week, you've got people that have been programmed. They've been taught this. They're prepared. They know it's coming. Yet they are giving themselves, they're telling on themselves because they are not diligently taking the offense daily. They're telling on themselves by saying, well, I'm not practicing what you're preaching.
Right. That's right.
I'm telling you, Dr. Shannon, we don't need to talk about anything else.
That's right.
Because I can't tell you something good means to say that I'm not practicing something good.
That's right.
Right? And this accentuating the positive is not something that you do because you heard it on a podcast from Tom, or you sat in a class over the weekend, you read it in a book. No, it's habitual, creating a characteristic that gets so deep rooted inside of you that it becomes a part of your identity, which is something I said earlier, identity. What do you identify as? And if you don't identify as positive, you don't identify as an overcomer, what's the opposite of an overcomer? You're defeated, right? So, yeah, we can go any direction you want, but we've also got examples of people that are, accentuating the positive, what's happening in their lives. There's good things to celebrate inside the aligned family, right? You and I get to do that every week when we get the directors together and we compare notes, what's happening out there in the field.
You mentioned affirmations a moment ago. We want to come back to that. You also mentioned media fast. Make a note, please, on your paper that we want to cover that, because we say media fast, and there's probably people out there that say, what is that? I never heard that before, or I think I might know what that is, but let me make sure. Tom just shared with you something that is part of our culture, and is part of our culture since day one. Anytime that there's a gathering of AMC leadership personnel, and we have a standing conference on Thursday where the leadership group meets and we do what leaders have to do. We discuss the business and make decisions and whatever. We always start off with what? Our good news and our honorable mentions. And we are all very busy people. But of that 50-minute conference, easily 15 to 20 minutes, you can count on it every single week, 15 to 20 minutes of that 50-minute, very busy conference. And you know how these are, Tom. There's a lot of stuff to cover every single week. Things are constantly changing. Things constantly need attention and modification. But 15 to 20 minutes is celebrating our heroes, celebrating the people that we serve and the good things that are happening, right? And that's intentional. There are times, I know that it's happened to you, it's happened to me, where I got all this stuff to do. I got all this agenda in front of me. Hurry up here. We need to get through this. We have to be careful about that. That's a temptation that we deal with because we have so much to cover. But we never want to put a cold water on that fire. If we lose that attitude of gratitude for what our members are doing, we might as well just close up shop. But that's another inside baseball, inside the actor studio for you listeners. That's literally our weekly business conference. A third of it, at least, is devoted to that good news and that positive stuff that's coming, that you're doing in your practices, the results that you're achieving. That's what pumps us up. what gets us going.
And if you don't celebrate your heroes, then what are you left with? Let's just stop there, just real quick, Dr. Shannon, before you move on to that. If you don't get into the habit of celebrating the good news, then what are you left with? You're left with all the bad news, all the negative, all the responsibility, all the burden, all the taxation, the taxing, physically, mentally, spiritually. There's no celebrating. There's no reward. And your reward should be able to celebrate the works of your hands, right? Your efforts, your purpose. So it's yes, you're right. And you can lose inside this aligned family. The fastest route to losing that family culture is for us to take it for granted.
That's exactly right.
Right? Let us start thinking it's about us. All right. We get on that director call and it's all about business and what do we need to do and what's this decision? And you'll lose that family culture and the thing that makes Align so special, so fast. But we'll never do that, right? You and I will make sure we never stop celebrating the good, positive news, right? Do you have to, and that's a form of our own affirmations.
That's what I was going to say. Yep. This is a form of our own affirmations because it reminds us of our purpose and our mission and the heart of why we do all this. I'm not going to name any names, but occasionally over the 20 plus years that we've been doing this, we've had the occasional guru, the occasional hot shot in chiropractic, whatever, come and be part of our internal workings. And it's shocking and also very saddening that when we go through our good news and we're legitimately celebrating our people, they're shocked. Like they're coming from this world of rah-rah and encouragement and all this outwardly professed love and you can do it and whatever. And internally, there's none of that. It is completely devoid. I love that about what we do. We're real with that, right? And that's what makes us, one of the things that makes us radically different. I'm sorry, this isn't a commercial for what we do, but it just reminds me of what we do and has become part of the culture is not what everybody else does.
And if I could just jump in real quick, because it's not about us. This show today is not about us. It's just examples that you and I get to experience weekly. So I asked the listener, all right, you're a chiropractor. If you were an Align member, where inside the AMC system and teaching do we teach that component? Where would you find that? And I'll give everybody a second to think about that. Where do I find Accentuate the Positive consistently? Celebrating your heroes. Well, I'm going to give you the answer. Who's doing a morning staff meeting? Who's doing the 5 to 7 minute get together? I'm not talking about your weekly staff meeting where you're breaking down. And by the way, you do that there too. But your 5 to 7, 10 minutes every morning, what are the three things? Inspiration, motivation, purpose. And what's the purpose? Talking about the new patient or talking about the patient that just came back in for their re-exam, re-report, celebrating this, celebrating that we received 2 referrals yesterday, whatever the good news is, who's doing that as a team, unifying your team, inspiring your team, that it's not a job. You want to change people from coming in and punching a clock and just having staff that you think that they're there to work for you and serve for you. People don't want a job. They want a career. I was literally just downstairs 30 minutes ago talking to somebody that's been working here where we are today for 40 years. They've been coming in there for 40 years. And out of her mouth, she said, she's telling all the young people that work with her, she's saying, find a career. Don't find a job. I've been here 40 years and it's just a job. Right? Your people, you want staff, a team to stay with you long term. They want to be inspired. They want to be led. And part of it is celebrating that their work makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And you do that every day in your staff meeting. And if you don't know how to do that, that's what we're here for, right? If you're out there wondering, what in the world? I don't do that. I don't know how to do that. Well, we do.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about affirmations for just a moment. We recently had one of our members who had a kind of a breakthrough moment with affirmations. I know that you know her, Dr. Karen West. She's in Gainesville, Florida. Very, very capable. This lady is sharp, and she's going to do big, big things. But she recently changed her affirmations, had a immediate impact. You want to share that with the audience?
Sure. I mean, the affirmation is, she's been a part of the AMC family about a year. I might be off a little bit more. Might be a little off here and there, but not sure. She certainly wasn't a struggling chiropractor, large practice, plateaued, certainly wasn't reaching the levels of production that it should. She wasn't satisfied. She wasn't having a lot of fun with it. And I think she's reengaged and found a lot of that purpose. But one thing that she really latched on to here recently was probably that class I did not long ago on the affirmations and what we're doing in Core 2. And she, pay attention to this, folks. It's not just that you're speaking something positive. It's that you're being very specific on what you're speaking, right? You don't want to just, it's good. It's important to be general, to have generalized habit of speaking the positive. But when you can hone in and you get more and more specific, and it's actually a work in progress, right? Where, okay, well, that's not quite right. And by the way, folks, for those of you that do practice affirmations and goals, and you really know what you're doing and you know how to set goals, somebody that really knows how to set goals and follow them and are really pursuing them, they know that their goals will change. If you wrote your goals down 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, and they haven't changed, all right, I already know, and you need to be aware right now that you're not pursuing those goals. You're not intently, you're not passionately pursuing it. It's a wish. But if you're really working on it and you're working on yourself, your goals will change and shift. Same kind of goes for the affirmations. We can talk before we wrap this up on, a real quick exercise of how to write affirmations, because a lot of people just don't understand what's an affirmation, what's it mean, and why is it important to me. But in Dr. West's example, she shifted her affirmation. She got a little bit more detailed, and as she did, she said her affirmation was something to the effect of, my patients value and respect my recommendations, and they pay in full. Okay. So I don't know which part of that was tweaked, but she made an adjustment. And what are the key words that I really capture in there? One is my patients are going to value my recommendations. All right. And if a person puts value on it, then they're not going to have a problem on that back end. The back end is not, the listener that doesn't know probably hears pays in full, right? Because that's where everybody's mind goes, is to the money.
Right.
But where's the secret of that affirmation? The secret was in, my patients are going to value what my recommendations, and then they'll pay in full. And from what you talked about our director phone call on Thursdays, it was Dr. John Lay that brought up and celebrated Dr. West the last week or 2 weeks ago, something to that effect. She had 6 new patients, 6 report of findings, 6 prepays.
Yep.
Right? All 6. Boom, 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 boom. All from shifting an affirmation. Here's the key. Like I said, no roses and lollipops. All right? Is that going to happen? Is she going to close and prepay 100% for the rest of her career? No.
Of course not.
No. But the objective, folks, is when you're just randomly going through the motions. This is how business works. If you're just randomly shooting from the hip, you don't have a system, you don't have the purpose, you don't have the identity, you don't have the values, you don't have the beliefs, and you're just shooting from the hips. Well, there's enough. You can get, don't confuse motion with progress. You can get motion. You can see patients. You can get new patients in. But statistically, which is something that you're very good at, Dr. McMurtry, you know that you can just loosely run a business, and let's say 10 new patients come in, we'll look at it statistically. The average person's going to keep 3 to 4 of those for any length of time, regardless of what the recommendation is. Let's not even go down that road. That's a completely different affirmation or expectation. But only you're going to randomly get 3 to 4. The objective is to get to where you're not going to be the answer for everybody. And if you try to pursue that, you're going to end up being frustrated. What is it? Frustration, fatigue, and depression all follow in line. That's where you're going to end if you're just constantly looking for perfection. Right. Dr. West is not going to be perfect, but when you're following the guidelines, following the system, and then you add that component, you add the component of looking for things to be thankful for, adding the component of affirmations, expectations. Now, also, can that be the thing that moves it from what our standing, expectation is 7 out of every 10, right? Would that one component, tweaking it, move it from 7 to 8? Probably so. Yeah. Probably so. And if you're seeing 20 new patients a month, that's an extra 2 at a $4,000 or $5,000 care plan. And I'm not saying what that average needs to be. I'm just saying, let's say 4,000. That's $8,000 a month. That's $96,000 a year. And that's how you move and change a business over time, simply by changing the outlooks and the expectations.
I love it. I love it. Hey, you know what? This is a great subject. I didn't expect us to go on a 2-parter, but that's where we're headed today, Tom. So listeners, we're going to divide this one up, and then we're going to close this one down as part 1 of Accentuate the Positive. Part 2 will be coming next week. So make sure that you join us for that one.
Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course, and we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required, and we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.